Hi, the sun is shining. I've been working on sequences for spinal health, how your shoulder mobility, your hip mobility affects your lower back, how your spine moves, how you move. So I'm going to start with a bit of rolling first. And I have my trusty tennis ball. I'm all about cheap and budgeting, so tennis balls are really, really handy. So we're going to work into the glutes. So around gluteus maximus right up into glute medius. And we're going to do that in a couple of different ways. So coming down to sit, if you put your trusty tennis ball under your hip, just take your weight into your hands and just have a roll around. So you can make really big circles. Just see where you find a little tender spot. And if you turn your leg out, that changes again where you're going to feel it's a little bit crunchy in there. So just adjust to where you feel that you need to release some of the tissue. And I like to do this at the beginning of my yoga classes. It just helps to rehydrate the tissues a little bit. So we can also, I'll do the other side quickly so I'm not lopsided. So you can turn your leg out, have a little roll around. I know it looks weird, but it's really beneficial. And believe me, when you've been running or cycling or even just sitting too much, it's really handy to have this kind of release. So the other option, and I'm doing this quickly because we could be here for hours rolling, is to put your right ankle over your left knee. And so again, you're accessing slightly deeper tissues. Oh, this one feels good. So just have a feel around. Obviously, if you have an active inflammatory condition, then this is not a good idea. Anytime you have an active inflammatory condition, you're better off resting, icing. You know the drill. Rest, ice, compression, elevation. Might be a little bit hard in your hip, but we never actively work in an area which is inflamed. So have your roll around. Okie dokie. So I'm going to turn away from you for a sec. And we are going to start just gently drawing the knees into the chest. Then extend your legs up to the ceiling. I'm wearing socks, it's still very cold here. And we're going to just rotating leg bones and hip sockets. So turn the legs out. Turn the legs in. And just keep doing this. See how much restriction or how much mobility you have in those hips. You can do one at a time if you like. Just keep your pelvis nice and quiet. We just want to move this leg in the hip socket. I'll do the other side. And drawing the knees back into the chest. We're going to reach between the knees, grab hold of the feet. So it's a little bit like Baddha Konasana, but with your legs up. So just gently draw the feet down towards your body. I like to push a little bit with my elbows, push into the fleshy part of my thighs. And if you want to have a little rock from side to side, I find this really soothing. So we're getting movement through the inner leg, through the groin. We want to target all the muscles around the hip, so inner, outer. Okay. Extend the legs once more. As you extend your legs, you'll get a sense of what's happening in the backs of your legs, so your hamstrings. Just see how tight the backs of those legs are. Flex your feet only if it's comfortable. And then again, we're going to take the outsides of the feet. You could do outsides, I quite like grabbing hold of the insides of the feet. And just gently draw the knees down. This is a happy baby pose, and you can see why it's called that. So just be nice and soft. Draw those knees down. Don't ever force the movement. Just where you feel comfortable. We're going to stay here for a few breaths. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed, your neck is relaxed. Gentle chin tuck. And we all may always employ a nice smooth and steady diaphragmatic breath. So the other benefit of this posture is that you have a bit of compression in your belly, so around your lower abdomen. So your colon would be getting a nice gentle massage here. So take that breath deep into your belly and slowly exhale. With your next breath, releasing the feet, draw the knees into the chest. And I'm going to stay in this position for the next posture as well. So you have choices here, either right ankle over left thigh, and you could use a strap if you can't reach your shin. So we thread the strap through the leg, around the shin, or you could take hold of your shin. And it's nice to keep the top foot flexed, and this way you don't twist your knee. This is just knee safety 101. Top foot is flexed. And the other side, so we're not holding this one for too long, but that's entirely up to you. If you feel that you want to stay a little bit longer, you can pause the video, make the practice more yin-like, hold each side for 3 to 5 minutes. So as much as this is valuable for some people, if you are quite flexible, you might not feel that it's moving the tissues enough, in which case you cross the legs at the knees, like when you're sitting, and you can take hold of the feet and gently draw the feet up, and then just draw the right foot, down to your chest a little bit. So this is supine shoelaces. I rather like this posture because I can really feel the opening in that outer right hip. And again, you can hold this for 3 to 5 minutes to make it just slightly more yin-like. And then release, we'll go to the other side. So crossing at the knee, either staying in this position, depending on your flexibility, or we can take hold of the feet, or in a little bit closer, or you can just bring the feet up. So we're using this right leg to lever the left towards the chest. And again, smooth, deep breath into the belly. Again, you want to take advantage of that compression. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your neck is relaxed. And then releasing the feet, drawing the knees into the chest. As you draw your knees into the chest, notice whether your hips are lifting. So we want to keep the hips, keep your bottom on the floor, but gently squeeze the knees towards the chest. Then taking hands to knees, we're going to make little circles. So bring the knees toward, then out to the side, gently push them away. And then we'll reverse this. So the knees are together, we push them away, and open out to the side and draw them around together. So as we move nice and slowly, we're rotating, we're getting this nice movement in the hips, so we can lubricate the joints, warm up the joints. Gently draw knees in. Cross the feet, and you can rock yourself up to sit. That was quite inelegant. Anywho, so I've not focused on any warming up beforehand. If you were in a yin kind of mood, you wouldn't be warming the muscles. You would go straight into the postures, hold them, put an extra layer on, keep a blanket close by. If you want this to be more dynamic, you could work through 5 or 6 sun salutations to heat your body, and then just hold the positions for a slightly shorter length of time. So you might need a minute, 1 to 2 minutes when you're holding the postures. So we're going to come to Siddhasana, and I have my heel pulled into the groin, the other leg in front. You could use the hands behind to help sit up straight, help draw yourself up, and then slowly move your weight forward. So the sit bones are still grounded here, and just be comfortable wherever you are. So some people might be up here, some people might just stay here. That might be as far as they're going to move with those hips. You might be all the way down here. You might have the arms extended. So just see how you feel. What other people do is just fabulous and entirely up to them, but you have to be very careful with where you push your body and how far. So for me, coming down to the forearms is quite comfortable. I can stay here for ages. So just focus your attention on that outer hip. We have the leg bone externally rotated. Relax your head. And so as I was saying before, because we're making this quite yin-like, we can soften through the shoulders. You can drop your head down to the floor so you get some length through the tops of the shoulders. It's just really nice to release your neck that way. With your next breath, slowly come back up to sit, and then we can change sides. If you want a little challenge, don't use your hands to swap sides. Just see where you're going to cross your feet. See where they land. And then just shift your weight slowly so that you're back in the same position. So again, heel into groin. Adjust the front leg to where you feel comfortable. Before you start, notice where your knees are. Are they sitting up here? And it doesn't matter if they are. You could pop some roll towels or some yoga blocks under your knees if you need a bit of support. Some people can't sit in this position, so cross-legged is fine. You still need to get the rotation through your hips. And then again, you can use the hands, move yourself into position, Keep the sit bones firmly grounded. Slowly walk the hands forward to wherever you feel comfortable. Coming down to the forearms or all the way down to the floor. Drop your head, relax your shoulders. And with these forward folding positions, we're always going to have some compression through the front of the body, through the abdomen. So if you have issues like constipation, this is perfect for getting some massage and movement. If you have chronic diarrhea, it's not a good idea to compress the abdomen very strongly. So in which case, you're better off just sitting up a little bit higher, not compressing the abdomen too much, but still getting the movement through the hips. So it's just little things to be mindful of when you practice. And with your next breath, slowly walk the hands back to the feet. Just take a few moments in Tadasana. So it's a nice time now just to take stock of what's happening in your back. See how it feels. It might be pleasantly warm through your lower back and through your hips. Next breath, we're going to start moving a little bit. Become a bit more dynamic. Okay, my mouth. I'm going to take my socks off. I'm just going to draw the feet in. So to where you feel comfortable this time. You can take them hip distance apart. Bringing the hands down to the side. We're just going to gently rock the legs from side to side. You might get some clunking and some crackling in those hips. So not only are we internally and externally rotating the leg bones, but you're getting a little bit of rotation through your spine as well. I just love doing this. There's something satisfying than hearing a little bit of cracking in those joints. If you want to be still, you can take one leg down and just hold it for a couple of breaths. To the other side. And then we're going to take the right leg out. Turn your body forward and we're going to move into pigeon pose. It's going to be, we won't focus too much on our alignment because we're making this slightly more yin-like. So slide your left leg back. Just bring your weight up, adjust yourself here. Now some people are able to get this right shin out to 90 degrees. I'm not a ballet dancer, I'm not a gymnast. I'm not doing that because I value the safety of my knees. I do like to keep the front foot flexed, and again, this is to stabilize your knee, so you get rotation in your hip rather than twisting your knee. So I'm going to come up a little bit into my pigeon. If you want to relax into it, you can place a towel under your right buttock, and you can even lean into it a little bit, so you make it slightly more relaxing. You can stay up and support yourself with your hands, or you can come down onto your forearms, or you could come all the way down. So again, this is entirely your choice. Notice what your lower back feels like. If it doesn't like being up here, if you're feeling some tension across the lower back, your spinal mobility is not that great, then by all means, come down to the forearms. You could also pop a bolster under your forearms or a blanket just to raise you up a little bit. So we can just chill out here in pigeon, just relax. And as I said before, you can hold for as long as you need. So, or just stop the video if you feel you want to hold it a bit longer. We're going to change sides, so draw the left heel in, extend the right leg out. I'm not transitioning using a downward facing yet. We're just having a nice slow practice. So again, check that front foot, get yourself comfortable, either coming down to forearms or bring the head all the way down. So for most people, squaring up their hips is very comfortable. If you aren't able to do that by yourself, again, you can put a towel, a rolled up towel or blanket under your left hip, and that's going to help get you into alignment. If you want to make this more yin-like, you'd soften into, you'd sort of roll into that left hip, and so your hips wouldn't be as square. But again, it depends on how you're feeling at the time. You might want to be a little bit more dynamic. You might want to just relax a little bit. So just see how you feel. So we are going to take a downward facing. So just bring your hands either side of your front leg. Tuck the back toes under and step yourself back to downward facing. If your hamstrings are a little bit tight, you might look like this. That's perfectly fine. So we're pushing the floor away with the hands, lifting your bottom to the ceiling. Then you might even want to walk out the dog, so pulsating the heels, and then come to full downward facing. Take one more breath here. Come to your knees. We're going to bring the big toes together. Take the knees apart and just lower yourself down to the floor. Extending the fingers are spread, forearms are lifted off the floor. And we're just working gently, working your bottom to your heels. Allow your chest to sink down to the floor. You can look up. Maybe just take the gaze down to your mat, lengthen through your spine. And taking one more breath here. Walking the hands back. I'm going to turn to face you. And we are going to take a frog pose. It's not a full frog pose because I can't do that. So you can use a bolster. You have to decide which view is better. So usually I would use a bolster, take the knees apart, take the feet out, and you can rest your forearms on the bolster. So this is what it looks like from the front. And then this is what it looks like to the side. So the further forward you come, the more support you have, the more you take your weight back, the more intense that movement in your hips is going to be. So again, just always be careful, always be mindful of how you feel. It's not a competition as to how far down to the floor you can get, but we need that nice, gentle, sustained pressure. We don't ever want to force in yoga. So just be here quietly and just bring your attention to your hips, to your groin, to your lower back. Always noticing what is happening, noticing the sensations, and also noticing how you feel mentally. Sometimes when we put ourselves in physically challenging positions, you have those niggly, you might become a little bit irritated, you might at yourself maybe, or at the difficulty of the posture or the challenge. You just have to still that mind, still your breath. Just be nice and slow. So you could also just rest your full weight on the bolster. And when I lay down my cheek, I usually use the non-preferred side. And it's always tighter, obviously, because you have a preference for the other side of your neck. So non-preferred side is always good when you have to take a position like this. So again, you can stay here from 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what you need. I'm slowly going to take the weight into my hands, bring my feet together, and then bring my knees together. It can be a little bit intense, that posture. I'll just move this out of the way. So coming to your back. Now, we are going to take the feet out to the side of the mat and just let your knees drop together. So we've been in quite an intense rotation, external rotation. So now we're just going to let the knees drop into each other. Just make sure your shoulders, your neck is relaxed. Nice full breath into the belly. And then we can drop the knees to the right. As you take the knees to the right, you can stay right here if it's comfortable. But I find that personally I don't get enough movement through the left hip. So you could take hold of your foot and draw your foot up to your bottom. And that makes it slightly more intense. Work the knee down, the left knee down to the floor. But always be mindful of how your lower back is feeling. So you might have to lift your hip. Just have a play with that and see how it feels for you. And then we'll change sides. So you can take a moment, just take a breath with the knees together. Then allow the left knee to drop to the left. And again, you can stay in this position or just take hold of that right ankle and draw your right foot up to your bottom. You might feel, I like to have a little poke around in my hips to see where it's tight. Just for future reference for when you're rolling out again. Nice, smooth, slow, steady breath. Let your belly swell, let the breath rise. Slow exhale. And then releasing the right foot. Bringing the soles of the feet together, just allowing the knees to drop out to the side. If you want a supported Supta Baddha Konasana, you might pop some blocks under your knees. But I'm going to stay in this position. And it's really lovely to stay here for at least 3 minutes. No matter what kind of practice you're doing, whether it's dynamic, whether it's yin. Always be aware, bring your attention to where you want the movement in your body. So focus on the muscles of the inner groin, the adductor muscles. Some people get a little bit crampy around the hips, so just be aware of any sensations around the outer part of the hip, maybe around the lower back. You might need a bit of support under the lower back, see how you feel. Drawing the breath deeply into the belly, gentle exhale. It's also nice to take your arms overhead. And so we get some opening through the chest. And if you're feeling particularly soft, you could also lie back on a bolster to open your chest a little bit more. And then to finish your practice, just bring the arms down by the side. We turn the palms up to open through the shoulders. And we can extend the legs. Take a few moments here to notice how your low back feels. To notice any sensations around those hips, around your lower belly. We can take 10 nice full belly breaths. And then maybe a nice meditation, a nice guided meditation would be perfect. So you can stay in Shavasana for as long as you need. I am going to slowly come up. Bending the knees, rolling to the side. I'm going to use my hands to come up to sit. If you are taking a longer Shavasana, then you've paused the video. Just as you come back to the seated position, just take a few breaths sitting upright. Take a few breaths and be aware of how your body feels after your practice, and notice whether it's any different to before you started practicing. It's nice to start and finish in the same position, so you can just be aware of what's happening. Bringing the hands together. I'm going to finish with an Om, beautiful healing Om. Namaste, yogis. Wishing you a wonderful day.